if you are heads up and you call the flop with 7-8, which is a backdoor club draw and a gut shot, yeah, this is absolutely a spot where you want to. Here was Wes Cutshall, and we're going to be doing another vlogger review hand, and this was a hand that was played like a long time ago as Wes is getting back into playing in Houston, probably even pre-COVID pandemic. And the interesting thing about these games, Wes, is that you guys, seems like you guys love to straddle a lot, right? So it causes a lot of spots.
Yeah, we structured the game around the type of players that were going to show up, and no max buy-in, no max on the straddles, and not just no max, but you can just straddle anything. You can go 5, 10, 20, 100, and the next guy can straddle 400. I mean, we just don't have the traditional rules. I play in games where we don't have that, and it really exposes like the normal structures as being kind of ridiculous. If you want to have a good, fun game where people want to throw a lot of money around, if that's what the players want to do, let them do it. Don't put them in some sort of structure. So in this game, yeah, we have all kinds of straddles, and we get, quadruple, quintuple straddles at times. And in this hand, I think it's a double, triple straddle at least, if not a quadruple.
So yeah, in this particular hand, it looks like you're in the sort of the double straddle, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're in the double straddle to 20, and you guys are playing deep, and it looks like that one guy limps right to your left in MP1,
right?
And it gets around to the small blind who makes it 90, and you have 7-8 of clubs like in this sort of single straddle, and you call, and the other guy calls. And what's interesting to note here too, because we've been doing several hands with you, and another hand that we talked about, I might consider 3-betting in this spot to drive the other guy out of the hand. One of the things about suited connectors and sort of mid-ish suited connectors is that you don't really want to play it multi-way, especially from the middle. It's much harder to play. So obviously, you want to VPIP this hand, you want to call. If you do call, this guy's going to come in from behind, so you're going to have 7-8 suited in the middle. I don't know how much 3-betting you do, but it's just something to note.
Yeah. Again, the same comment as last time is I think part of it is just I learned poker in games where you see so many people in the hand that I've gotten comfortable, whether that's correct or incorrect, but I've gotten comfortable not feeling like I got to get this heads up. And I do it a lot, but in spots specifically with a hand like this where I would cry if I got 4-bet, I tend to just call. If I had a hand like 9-7 suited, I might be more likely to try something, as in if he re-raises, I'm just going to pitch the hand. So I think that's kind of what I gauge things on. How sad would I be if I got re-raised? And so I decided to take this one without trying to take it down pre-flop.
And again, I just think that from the small blind's perspective, like one person limps in, and you do have to pay attention in these multiple straddle games, because you can start to think about, well, where actually is the small blind? I mean, yes, he's next to the button, but like, he could be only second or third to act. That could be really strong. It's not a traditional small blind, but there's so much dead money out there. These guys haven't even acted yet, right? But when the small blind opens against one limp, he could be trying to pick up the open. It's just something of note that, I think in my own game, even direct suited connectors from the middle are very troublesome. I'd much rather have a pair, like sixes or fives or something like that. But you call, this other guy calls, and you guys go basically, 3 ways here to the flop, with it probably just being right around 300 or something. We'll have it up on the graphics. And it comes out ace of spades, 4 clubs, 6 of spades, right? Ace of spades, 4 clubs, 6 of spades. So you flop a gut shot here to a 5, and you also have a backdoor club draw. Now this guy comes out and he bets 165. So he bets 165, which is a little bit over half the size of the pot. And again, I'm kind of seeing somewhat of a common theme here. If you were heads up in this spot and you were closing the action, absolutely, I think that you would have a call here. For me personally, I think actually with this sizing, this is a fold, because there's a guy behind you, and we don't know what that guy really can do. The other interesting thing about this board is that unlike sometimes like if you peel with like a backdoor straight draw and flush draw and an overcard, if somebody has an ace on ace 4-6, you basically have no way of winning the hand unless it came like runner. So that's kind of my take on this.
I know that I probably fold this 99% of the time, maybe even heads up 80% of the time. I do remember when I played the hand, there was 2 things I remember from this hand. Was that the guy that did the raising was a spicy player that was mixing it up, and I remember thinking he doesn't definitely have to have an ace, and if he doesn't have an ace, I don't know that he's going to continue the turn. And for some reason, I do remember thinking it felt heads up if I called. Like I didn't assume that the guy on my left was going to call. Now, maybe that's just me remembering that I got heads up, but I do remember the thought of that this was going to be a heads up pot. So I agree. I don't normally call, and I wouldn't have overcalled if somebody called before me.
Yeah.
But I don't always assume that I'm going to call here. And now this guy behind me is going to call. So in this one spot, I said, hey, let's just hit a 5 and bust this guy, to be honest. And if I don't, let's see if we can win it some other way and make a pair or, and I would actually try. I would still bluff if I made a pair. I wouldn't try to go to showdown with this guy being kind of a loose cannon in this hand.
By the way, too, just one other thing is that you can see if you clean that guy up behind you pre-flop, then you can always continue. So that's a good example, right?
Yeah.
You can always continue against this. So you make the call and the other guy folds, right? So you get what you want, right? The other guy folds. So yeah, now you go to the turn, and obviously there's a front door spade draw out there. The turn is the king of spades. So you can see the board: ace of spades, 4 of clubs, 6 of spades, king of spades. So there's a front door out there. Now he checks. So now he checks, and the pot looks like it's he bet half the pot on the flop, so maybe 640, 650-ish, something like that. We'll have that up on the screen.
I have it as 615 on the turn.
Okay. And so he checks, right? And you start a bet here. You start a bet of 320, which, I think that even though this is a little bit of an extreme example because it was multi-way, if you are heads up and you call the flop with 7-8, which is a backdoor club draw and a gut shot, this is absolutely a spot where you want to start a bluff, right, on front door spades. So I like this. Now, I may have gone a little bit on the smaller side, but I'm not going to get too detailed about that because in live poker, a lot of times people consider half the size of the pot like a small bet. So I have no problem.
That's kind of the games I play and the way I play. I was going to say playing, but the way I play, I don't know how often I bet less than half pot, to be honest. So, so half pot to me is like, you want me to call? So my sizings are always pretty big. And on this turn, I was just thinking this guy has red 8s or something he's folding. If he doesn't have a spade or doesn't have an ace, he's probably just going to pitch the hand. And, if he has a king queen hand, he's going to continue. And, I was just kind of like, let's just try to take this down, see if he hates this card. And so I bet.
So you bet 320 and he calls. Yeah. So it's interesting that you say that, thinking about what he has. So when he check calls your half pot size bet here.
I was actually done with the hand at that point. That's what my thought was.
What do you think his range is for check calling here? What do you think he arrives here with, betting the flop and then check calling your turn bet?
Yeah, so the easy hands are, he could be doing this with any ace that just wants to, not give up too easily. I think a hand like king queen. I don't know if he can have. He can obviously have a hand like a pocket pair, maybe as good as queens, tens, jacks that has a spade. And then, of course, any combo that had a spade that was a king or an ace is going to be a pretty easy call. Again, I don't know that this guy's raising those in the small blind after a limp in the straddle, but I just remember him being a very, like he was a guy that I was like, I'm going to bust this guy. Like, I knew that I was going to bust this guy. I was going to get in a hand with this guy. So he was spicing it up, maybe making some mistakes, and I didn't put him on a traditional range necessarily.
So you think that he can check call with some hands here on the turn that don't have a spade in it, besides like sets? Like he could have ace 10 with no spade. He could have ace queen with no spade, right? Something like that. Okay.
I think he could have king queen of diamonds and continue just based on, or even an offsuit king queen, just based on what I saw at the time. Again, I just kind of categorized him as a certain type of player. I didn't know the guy. He had just been playing one session, so sometimes it's hard, but he had been trying to make some bluffs or had made some bluffs and got caught, whatever, or made some bluffs and showed the hand probably. And I just kind of like looked at, no equity bluffs and kind of put him in a range of player.
So he calls, and now the river's really, I find really interesting because not only does it put a 4 spade out there, the only thing that would actually even be more interesting is if it was the queen of spades. And I'll talk to you about that in a second. So puts a 4th spade, puts the jack of spades out there, so that now, right, it's a one-liner. It's a 4 flush, right? Anyone with the queen of spades basically has the nut flush, right? So the queen of spades is first, the 10 of spades is second. And now he checks to you here again. and you end up betting about 1/3. It's kind of funny because you said, you usually don't bet half the size of the pot. So you bet 1/3 here at the end, and the guy folds. Now, you might have a reason for doing this, but I'm going to give you my take here. Even now, again, this is the pure bottom of your range, meaning that you have absolutely no way to win whatsoever. Absolutely no way to win. So I think that you can absolutely make a case here for bluffing. You have no way to win, and it's different than other situations that I've talked about on my training material, where even though when you don't have showdown value, you shouldn't bluff. I will say this is an interesting exercise in hand reading, and maybe your opponent isn't on this level, but if I was in your opponent's spot here, I don't know what you are betting. I don't know what you get to here on the river that has a high spade in it. Because unless it's specifically ace-10 offsuit with the 10 of spades, what queen of spades hand do you have when you call the flop with somebody behind you? Unless it's ace-queen off, I would think that you'd 3-bet ace-queen off a fair amount, small blind there. So,
but he doesn't know that, though.
Right.
No, I don't think he knows.
Right.
But I actually think it's so funny. Again, I go back to our history of the games that maybe you grew up in, if you will, and I grew up in, is that you keep mentioning like, oh, with another player in the hand, but like the people I'm playing against don't think that way. Mm-hmm. So I do think people would show up on this river with 7-9 of spades, 7-8 of spades. I wouldn't have folded 7-8 of spades. Again, I played with a guy next to me. I called 7-8 of clubs, so I would have called 7-8 of spades. So I am just pointing out that.
Would you bet that in the game? End? With a 4 flush out there? I mean, that's really what the issue is that when the 4 flush comes, a lot of people, even if they're peeling really, really light, they're going to be betting only the 10 of spades plus. Some guys aren't even betting the 10 of spades. They're so scared. You know what I mean?
I would bet every flush on this river.
Every flush.
I would, yeah.
Yeah, and
so my thought was that on the sizing, I just want to make it look like I had the nut hand, and I wanted to get called by a worse spade, and I was just totally comfortable with or getting called by someone who had ace jack and just couldn't fold. So I didn't think it was necessary. I thought if he didn't have a spade, he's folding, and I didn't think it was necessary to put more money in the pot and then find out he did have that. Ace queen ace queen probably would bet right with a spade, but whatever ace or king X with a spade that somehow wasn't, like he said, wasn't the queen, wasn't the 10. I just thought it'd make it look like you're super value on this river bet third, because if I bet half, I'm just bluffing off more all the times that he somehow shows up with pocket eights with a spade.
Yeah, and by the way too, like the math on that, which is kind of interesting. Let's just make it even so that it's very, very easy for people to understand. If the pot is like 1,200 and you bet basically 400, you only need to be right 25% of the time.
Yeah.
You can actually add your bet to the pot size. So, if you can get the guy to fold 1 out of 4 times, you have a profitable bluff, so it's a really interesting, and it worked out for you too. I would just say that it makes sense that in this spot against this player, sure, absolutely, you're not risking much. I think for all the viewers out there, and maybe even if you were in another situation, it's always a very, very interesting hand reading situation when, let's say that we're the pre-flop raiser and we check a third suit on the turn to somebody, which was you in this case, and you bet. And then the river rolls off a 4th suit, especially if it represents what was the first or the second nuts. In this case, the jack, or if it was the queen, and then we check to you and you bet again. Reading the board there, especially if we have more information about the hand from earlier streets, like the fact that you called when we bet ace 4-6, it starts to get really, really interesting on 4 flush boards with hand rating, because a lot of people will not bet unless they have the second nuts plus, because it's a 4 suit, right? It's very, very easy for anybody to have. So I think it's an interesting hand, well played, and we'll definitely be doing some more hands with you. So
doesn't that mean we should be betting more if people just, let's say everyone at this table never bets anything but the queen of spades, and I bet this river, they don't just assume I have the queen of spades?
No, I mean, I think absolutely you should be depolarizing your river bet. I mean, that's a great secret of live poker. I always advocate betting one pair, like on 4 straight, on runouts, because some people will think you just have it or you don't. So if you can go in between, it's great because you'll get called down more. But that's a great concept.